guys, welcome to another episode of Midnight Madness Chats with Hardman. I've got a great guest on the air tonight. Please introduce yourself and tell me which bands you've played for.
Yeah, this is Joe Bouchard calling in from the USA, and I'm probably best known as one of the original founding members of the band Blue Öyster Cult. I've also played with several other groups in my time. Um, right after I left Blue Öyster Cult in 1986, I actually worked with Spencer Davis in the Spencer Davis group. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're one of those old rock and roll bands from England. And I was a keyboard player for about 2 years, so that was a lot of fun. And I've also worked with Dennis Dunaway and Neil Smith of Alice Cooper, a couple of my longest friends. And let's see, who else? I went to Iraq and played for the troops with Orleans and Survivor and Kool and the Gang. And a bunch of other bands. It was a lot of fun. So I've done a lot of different things in my life, and I'm still looking for the next new thing.
Well, that is very interesting. You've said some things that just make me realize that you've lived good.
I'm a rock and roller. But I'm too old for the rocker.
So you grew up on a farm. I'm taking this way, way, way back. How did your music influence, start on the farm? Who influenced you? And how did growing up on the farm, influence your own musical style?
Well, it was a small town that we lived in, right outside a small town. So it was pretty rural. And we did a little vegetable farming, but we never really ran it as a full dairy farm, say, you know. In fact, what we did is we took our barn and we turned it into a dance hall, and we'd have dances in the barn every weekend through the summers. This is when I was in, maybe high school, 10th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. And yeah, we played whatever was on the radio at that time. There weren't a lot of choices, you could only play what you heard on the radio. We would occasionally buy a 45 record, the old 45s, these, with the big round hole in them, and we'd learn a song that way. But we played a lot of instrumental surf music. Our favorite band was the Ventures, a group that played instrumental music. And as I've heard from a lot of other people in the rock business, rock and metal business, they all learned from the Ventures too. It's how you picked up your first song on the guitar, was playing a Ventures song, and you didn't need a singer. Because we were young teenagers, nobody wanted to sing. So eventually I said, wait a minute, we got to sing. So I'll be the singer. And so I sang most of the songs, although everybody sang, and that was a fun way to grow up, very innocent and naive, and but when I got a little older in high school, I had to make a decision about what I was going to do for my life. And I said, well, the only thing I really love doing is music. And so I ended up applying to Ithaca College in Ithaca, New York. They had a great music school there. So I studied music, not knowing that I would end up in a band like Blue Öyster Cult. I was actually I was a classical piano major. I wasn't very good as a piano player, but I faked my way through it. I faked my way through it, as you do.
Yeah, so you're a multi-instrumentalist. Tell me a little bit about that. Tell me, what do you play? What's your favorite? What is your sort of, cheating instrument that when you're not playing your main instrument that you sort of cheat with a little bit? Yeah, let me know about that.
Mostly I play guitar. Um, I was the bass player in Blue Öyster Cult because they needed a bass player, and I had played bass for a few years before I joined the band. That was in 1970, and but I always felt like I was more of a guitar player. And but I also play trumpet. Of course, I play a lot of piano too, a lot of keyboards and piano. I'm working on my eighth solo album right now, and There's a lot of keyboards too, and
Mm.
often I'll write a song on keyboards, and then while I'm writing, I'll pick up a guitar and see how it works that way. So I'm using different instruments to sort of develop my new songs. Um,
I think having so many instruments, that you can play makes things a bit easier. If you're feeling inspired by a certain sound, you can go to the trumpet or go to the piano. So I think it helps a lot.
Today, with today's technology, there's no limit to what you can do. I'll program drums and then add a bass guitar to it, mandolin, banjo, whatever the song needs. Um, I'll put it on the song. And then, I get together with my band and we take it apart and put it back together and see what works best. We try to keep things fairly simple, when I'm working with the band. Don't want to get too complicated. Don't want to go too prog because
Mm.
I'm a rocker. I'm not a prog.
I, I've got some questions from fans that I reached out to my social media and I asked
Oh,
them
great.
if, if you can ask a question. So um, some of these questions might be a bit strange, but
That's all right.
it's it's asked by fans. So
Yeah.
Jason asks, weird question, but how did you guys decide to make a song about Godzilla and King Kaijus? Did I say that right?
Godzilla was a movie that would be played on the independent TV stations in New York City. And sometimes they'd have a whole Godzilla weekend. So we whenever it was on, we always watched it, and especially the earliest, the first Godzilla movie was the funniest, and I think our guitar player Don Roser was talking to Patti Smith, who we worked with, the poet Patti Smith, the poet rock musician, um, and they were going to write a song together called Godzilla. But she went out on tour, and Don just figured out the song in a hotel room, and then he made a demo, brought it into rehearsal, and that's where Godzilla came from. I mean, it's a classic Blue Oyster Cult song. Uh, Everybody knows it. It's a great one, and I still enjoy playing it with my solo band, and I'm sure I'll probably be playing it for as long as I'm around.
Can you tell me more about your early band called Regal Tones and how
Regal,
you guys started out?
the Regal Tones. Well, I guess it was influenced by my uncle who played jazz, swing jazz. He would play a lot of weekends. He had, it was an amateur band, but we admired my Uncle Bill. And he also had, importantly, he had like 4 or 5 guitars. He was, he was a guitar fanatic. So he let us borrow his guitars. I mean, I was probably 10, 11 years old. And so Uncle Bill, he kind of encouraged us. we get stuck on how to play a song. He would help us. And then we got asked by, we were playing on the street. We would play like on the street corner, and we put out a hat. We put out a hat. People come by and put coins in our hat, and we made like 35 cents the first time we were out there. We said, "This is great. We can make money at this." So we took the 35 cents, bought 7 candy bars. It was cheaper back then. And but then we were in a Boy Scout troop, and our Boy Scout leader said, "Hey, we're going to do a dance, a fundraising dance. We need a band. Why don't your band play at the Knights of Columbus Hall in our little town?" And it was a magical night, and I can remember it very well. There were, as it would be, and I don't know if you ever go to old time dances, but all the girls would be sitting on one side of the room, and all the guys would be on the other side of the room. So we got up there. We didn't know what was going to happen, So we started playing the simplest rock and roll song we knew. Doom, 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 boom, doom. And all the girls, every one of them, stood up and started dancing. And I go, "What? What's going on?" We're just laughing like little schoolboys, And I said, "Whoa, this is cool. This is cool, Because, I was the shyest guy around, I was very shy. So to do something like play in a band and get everybody in the room from the first note we played. So eventually we got to doing the whole school dance circuit. And that was the time that we started the barn dances in our barn. And so eventually they got to be really popular. I mean, the whole place was packed. We just had my brother Albert, who was the drummer in Blue Öyster Cult, the brothers rhythm section of the original band. We were just honored in our hometown, and it was fantastic. So one of the guests at this event in the Opera House, the Clayton Opera House, was Viggo Mortensen. Do you know the actor Viggo Mortensen? Been in a lot of very, very big movies. Well, his mother had a house right next to our farm. So he knew about Bouchard's barn. So here we are at this opera house, and they throw up a big picture of our barn, which he would go up and steal from our vegetable garden. So I was kind of blown away by that, and everybody was kind of like, "Whoa, that's cool. These guys, they used to play in their barn." So that went right through our whole high school thing, and then the end of the band really started because Albert, my brother, he's a year older than me. He went to college, so that was the end of the band. And when he was in college, he met who was become Don Roser, who was yet to become Buck Dharma of Blue Öyster Cult, and they were college students together. And they dropped out together basically and started a band. And I was going to music college in Ithaca, and then they decided they needed a new bass player, and that's how I got into the band. But the whole the Regal Tones thing, it was never a real professional band, because we were all students by day, and on weekends we'd be the hero at the high school dance. I know it's very corny. It's a very corny story, but just I still can feel the energy. I still can feel the energy. That was 60 years ago. I can still feel the energy of that time and how it affected me. and keeps me rolling along to this day, you know. And I've got my little studio here. I can make, you know, ballets and operas and rock and roll songs and heavy metal songs right here in this little room. Of course, I use a real studio uh,
Mm.
with my band, but yeah, it's good. It's good.
Well, modern times. That yeah, that was a great story. I could relate to that. Obviously, I live in South Africa, so it's a different culture. But we had a very similar story where our first band, you know, we were not professional in the slightest. You know, we had no
Yeah,
idea,
yeah.
and we also went and we took a hat and we threw it there and we made money and we were like 16, 17, and you know,
Yeah,
we're still young
yeah,
boys, and it was just great. And there was no like obligation to do anything. We just, it was
yeah,
pure passion, you know. And I can
yeah.
relate so
Wow.
much to what you just said, and it must have been such a great experience.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if you know Stephen Foster. Um, he was one of the producers of Leonard Skinner's Free Bird and a
Oh,
co-writer on the song.
yeah, yeah.
He once said, coming back to your story, he once said, if you can make the girls dance, you sold out. So,
That's
so,
great. That's great.
so
It's
that's
true. It's
it's
true.
so cool. Tell me the moment you joined Blue Oyster Cult, and did you guys ever think you are going to make it big?
I thought that the band had a different name before I joined the band. They were called Soft White Underbelly, and they were more like a psychedelic, you know, psychedelic band. You know, not metal at all. Um, just kind of free form, you know, quasi jazz, a lot of improvisation. And so I followed them all through my college career when I was going to the college. I followed them and I thought, these guys are going to make it big. They are, you know, I thought the music was really creative. Uh, couldn't wait for them to actually be big stars, but it didn't happen. And so uh, they played the Fillmore East and opening for um, Jeff Beck and Jethro Tull at the Fillmore East in New York, a very famous venue back in the day. And they didn't do well. So that was kind of like, wasn't working for them. So
Mm.
um, that that was 69. Yeah. So it was a rough year. It was a rough year for them. Um, they changed singers. They had a new singer. Um, And then when I joined the band, I thought we would definitely do well. But then the same week I joined the band, which was September of 1970, we got dropped by Elektra Records. They had a deal with Elektra. Elektra dropped them. And I was so mad because I said, you know, why didn't they give me a chance? But, you know, I was just the bass player, you know. The bass player gets no respect, you know. I ain't got no respect. So um, I always believed that we would do well. I never thought we'd be as big as we were. Um, for, you know, I thought if, I've told this story many times, I thought if we did 3 records and we lasted for 3 years, that would be a win. But as it was, you know, I did 14 albums with them, and they've got so much out of that, and the you know, it's just kept going for decades and decades. And I said,
Mm.
gee, this is definitely what I thought we could have been. For 6 years, from when the Reaper, Don't Fear the Reaper, our big song, came out in 1976 until 82, we were one of the top bands in the world. So we had 6 incredible years, you know.
Mm.
And to tell you the truth, with streaming, it's even better now for some reason. I don't know why. A lot of bands have been left behind, but our catalog does very well. So whatever the reason is, maybe there's a lot of creativity. There's a lot of interesting personalities. The style of the band is when you put together all these personalities, um, and hopefully get the right direction and the right sound, it lasts. You know,
Mm.
it may not last forever, but it's going to last a long time.
Yeah, I think it's good music.
Yeah,
Honestly,
thank you.
your music is captivating, and we were speaking about the term earworm the other day, and it's definitely there. It gets stuck in your head, and then like even if you heard the song once on the radio and you haven't heard it again, you sort of go like, you're singing along to it,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
you start thinking like, what was that song? I need to listen to that song. So
yeah.
definitely earworm. I think it's great.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah.
let's get back to another fan question. Um, are they the leather-clad patrons of the Blue Oyster Bar from Police Academy?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
We're
Okay,
we're we're all family men, real men, family men. Uh, um, I have a couple of grandchildren actually, but you know, there was a post on social media recently, and it was like they were they showed a picture of us in our street clothes, and we weren't wearing leather at all, and they said, does this band wear leather? And then they had a lot of pictures of us in our leather clothes after that. But it was like, they're not really in leather all the time. So I still love leather.
yeah. So
I wear
that
my
was a
leather once in a while.
that was a question from JP.
Okay.
Getting back to my questions, what was your favorite memory of touring the world in the 70s?
My favorite memory. I don't know. I loved touring until I didn't. I loved it very much. Um, probably the most exciting thing was when Reaper broke through and we started playing big shows. We would do stadiums. We did a lot of stadiums. I can remember talking to um, my friends Cheap Trick, who were our opening act, and they said that summer was so good. You know, when every other day was a stadium. And if you're Taylor Swift or you're Metallica, you can do stadiums. But we were Blue Oyster Cult and we were doing stadiums. It was
Mm.
fantastic. So I love the big cities. I love going to the big cities of the world. I have yet to get to South Africa, but someday. I hope
We
so.
should make it happen. We should make it
Yeah.
happen.
Well, Um, so I really love the big cities. I've managed to go as a tourist to. I was just in Venice, Italy, beautiful place. We had a fantastic time. I've been to Amsterdam and London and Paris. I love the big cities. They're
Mm.
so interesting. I live out in the country now, so I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I love it. It's beautiful, but I do miss the cities, and that was a really major part of being on tour. It's like you do get to see a lot of cities, and
Yeah, and experience interesting people.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah, you meet a lot of characters.
So
It was
tell me about Metallica covering one of your band's songs. Like, how did you feel when you found out, and how did it make you like? How did it make the band feel? How what happened at that moment when you found out?
okay. They covered the song that I co-wrote with my brother. It's called Astronomy. It's on their Garage Inc. Album, very popular album. Sold 5 million, more, probably more than that now. over 5 million copies. So I was actually, I had a day job. I was working in a publishing company that publishes music books. I wanted a break from music, but it was a job that I could do. Uh, working in music publishing. It was interesting, and so I found out on the internet that Metallica was going to cover a Blue Oyster Cult song. I didn't know what it was. So I said, it'll probably be one of the obvious ones, the Reaper or the Burning for You or something like that. And then I found out it was Astronomy, and I was like, whoa, this is heavy, because those guys are huge all over the world. That changed my life. So the first thing I did, I quit my day job.
Nice.
I gave notice. I'm quitting my day job. I had no idea if I would make any money or anything. It was just a guess. It's Metallica. It's going to have my name on it, and also the other co-writers, my brother and our manager Sandy Perlman. We all co-wrote that song, and then I went to a couple maybe a month later. I go to my mailbox, and there's a cassette, a real old-fashioned cassette. Put it in my cassette player in the car, and I'm driving back from the post office, and I go, "Whoa, that's so cool!" I mean, two things. James Hetfield is singing the melody that I wrote. That gives me chills. Gives me
I'm
chills.
getting goosebumps right now while you're saying.
Yeah. He's singing, "The clock strikes 12 and moon drops first." And he's like, "Whoa, that's so mind blowing." And then Lars' kick drum comes in, boom, boom. Oh my God, whoa! I just wanted to jump up and down, but I couldn't because I was driving the car. Then they invited us. They invited us to New York to it was like the opening of, it was a smaller theater that they played called Roseland, and they invite us in. We talked to Lars about how they picked the song, and talked to James, and he was thrilled that we liked their version. I think they did a really respectful. I know the original fans, they still like the original version. There's some fans, no matter what you do, they always like the original best. And but I thought they did a great job with it, and it changed my life, because no longer was I going to be working in an office. I got to get back and write some songs. And the first thing I did, I ran into Ian Hunter. Do you know Ian Hunter from Mott the Hoople? Very famous English musician, but he lives in Connecticut in the United States, where I live. And I called up Ian. I said, "Ian, let's write some songs." So for about 4 months, we would go to Neil Smith's house, which was about a 45-minute drive from Ian's house to Neil's house. So I'd pick him up in my car, and we'd be talking about how to write songs. And he was giving me songwriting lessons. Like, this is what I do. I get up, I write songs. I get up in the morning, and the first thing I do is, before I even have my coffee, I'm writing songs. And then he's told me one thing: if you work on a song, and you're working and you're working and you're working on a song, and you only get one word all day, it's worth it. If you work on that song all day and you only get one word, it's worth it. So those are a couple of the lessons. But then we wrote some songs. We co-wrote some songs together. They never went very far. But it was exciting that, Metallica moved it into working with Ian Hunter. I mean, he's just a great guy. We recorded a couple of Ian Hunter songs on Blue Öyster Cult albums. We helped him out when he was He was not doing that well. And even now, at like, I don't know, he's 85 years old. His newest album is amazing. You know, he's a hero of mine for sure. So, yeah, that's 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 how it started with Metallica deciding to do Astronomy, which was I thought was a great choice. You know, they had other songs they were interested in, but luckily they chose the song that I co-wrote, and it changed my life.
Now that's must be an amazing experience, especially a song that you co-wrote. You know, that would blow my mind. I think
Yeah.
I would also quit my job and be like, you know
Well,
what, I've learned.
let me tell you another little story.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was working in my publishing job, and I heard that Metallica was coming around to play a concert, and I had never seen them live before. And this was about 3 years before they recorded Astronomy. And so I called a friend, another friend, you know, can you get me some passes for the Metallica show? And I would never, when I would go to a rock show, I would never push myself to go backstage, you know, and say, oh, okay, I'm the guy from a big rock band. I got platinum albums. You know, I don't need a pass. But I got a good pass. I got a pass that was like the manager's pass. Everybody else had like, you know, restricted passes. I had the manager's pass. So I'm walking down the hall, and Jason Newsted is walking the other way. And I say, Jason, hi, it's Joe Bouchard, you know? And he says, you're Joe Bouchard? And he grabbed my hand and he wouldn't let go. He grabbed my
You know,
hand,
that's
he wouldn't let go. It's just
amazing.
like, whoa, I can't believe it, you know, because he was in high school when we were playing our big stadiums in California. So he was the nicest guy. He is the nicest guy, and I've seen him a couple of times since then. And I said, "Come on down to the catering room. I'll introduce you to all my friends because there's a lot of people waiting for you." This was like well after midnight. You know, the show was over. The other guys in the band left. They went to New York because they had another show the next night. But Jason would come down and talk to the fans. And so I'm thinking, you know, it's a good thing to talk to people, you know, in person, you know. And I didn't never thought they would cover a song, but you know, now I go backstage all the time.
That must be amazing, and especially Jason Newsted is one of my favorite all-time favorite bassists. Not
Yeah,
talking about Metallica
yeah,
bassist, but just
heck,
all-time favorite bassist.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that must have been an experience, and then it like sort of turned, and he was a fan of yours. I can only imagine what that must have felt like.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, you
That
know, they're all nice. Those guys are good, and they, you know, um, oh, hey, when he left the band, I called up the management, said, "Hey, you need a bass player?" And then the the, the secretary said, "They don't want a bass player." Hang up the phone. So I called back again. Are you calling about the bass again? Well, they don't want a bass player. Click. And then, of course, I don't know if you did. You ever see the documentary?
yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, some kind of monster where they're auditioning bass players, and you know they got a great one. They, you know, what's his name?
Robert Trujillo.
Robert. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Robert. Robert is fantastic. You know, and he's younger than me. He's younger than me. I wouldn't have. It wouldn't have worked out. Well, maybe you never know. You never know.
Maybe. Well,
You never
you're
know.
definitely a great
I
musician.
could I
So,
could I could definitely do what a lot of what Jason could do, but
mm,
um, but they picked a great choice. You know, Robert is fantastic. So yeah, that was my lesson. Go backstage, talk to people.
network. It's a very important
Network.
part of being a musician.
Yeah,
So another question from a fan. This is Squibus van Rooyen. He asks, "How did the cowbell skit impact your life?"
I got a fever, and the only prescription is more cowbell.
I mentioned that Astronomy by Metallica really infected me. The cowbell thing affected the band 100 times more, easily 100 times more, because at that time it was 2000 it came out, but the 90s, most of the 90s were not that kind to Blue Oyster Cult, and styles have changed. You had your grunge, you had hip hop, rap music. All of that was very popular. That had nothing to do with Blue Oyster Cult. So when that came out, and it just has a life of its own, it influenced a whole another generation of fans. And maybe one good reason. I won't say it's the only reason, but one good reason why the catalog does so well today. It's just a cultural touchstone. It just reaches out to the culture, and I don't know if it's that way in South Africa, but it certainly is here in America.
Mm. Yeah, well, South Africa is a very different music scene, I guess. We have multiple groups, and yeah, I don't think groups mix well together. We
Yeah.
have I'm hosting a show this coming weekend, and the bands, they're so entertaining. I love this. So these bands are very, so they make fun of each other, but in funny ways. So they would post these memes on the internet
Oh,
about each
cool.
other, and then they like mock each other, and it's so entertaining to watch because no one hates, I don't hate you, whatever. But the one, so it's primarily a metal show, but we got one punk rock band, Afrikaans punk rock. So Afrikaans is our native language. So they don't really fit, but I thought they fit well because they've got very high energy. So
Great.
now everyone is sort of joking about this band like being this girl with the blonde hair, and this emo guy with the black hair is the rest of the band. So we're like mocking each other. So there's a very good culture
Yeah.
amongst bands in their groups, and I think
Nice.
it's very entertaining.
Yeah. Hey, a question. Do you have YouTube in South
Yes,
Africa?
we do.
Because I have been, I put up maybe 30 new videos, and they're doing really well internationally.
Mm,
I haven't, maybe a little bit in South Africa, but not, but mostly in North Africa, in Morocco and Libya and Egypt. It's
mm,
huge. My
mm,
personal videos, from my solo band, the Joe Bouchard band,
mm.
and then it's taken off in India and Indonesia and just all over the world. So I've noticed that even my solo stuff, which is not that well known, is going crazy around the world. It may be
Mm,
places that didn't really follow Blue Oyster Cult necessarily.
mm.
It's
So
it to them it's all new. So that's exciting to me, and I will try to get more of my videos into South Africa and
definitely,
meet
I'll
my
share. I'll
friends.
share some of your videos.
Yeah, please.
Especially "Don't Fear the Reaper" is
Yeah.
is a very, very, very famous song in South Africa.
Wow, I
I
didn't know that. Yeah.
It's very famous. So I was speaking to a bunch of people around because now I was very excited to chat to you, and so I spoke to some of my friends, and I very seldomly heard of a person that didn't know of the band, and they all would
Mm.
refer to the band as the Don't Fear the Reaper band because
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
famous song in this
Most
country.
famous. Yeah. Cool.
And it's quite interesting, how the internet has opened up so many opportunities for bands to globally get a better reach, like
Yeah.
YouTube, Spotify, definitely.
Yeah.
um yeah, so
And
speaking
streaming is
about,
international too. Do you have Spotify?
yeah, we have Spotify, Apple Music.
Don't Fear the Reaper has got a 500 million streams. A 500
That's so
million
deep.
streams. I mean, it's not Taylor Swift, but it's not supposed to be, you know?
Mm.
So
Well,
it's a
I
big one.
think you did really well in your career. You've definitely met more than most people can dream of. So definitely doing well.
It's a good life. I've been
So,
blessed.
talking about Don't Fear the Reaper, tell me about the song and the writing process.
Well, the nice thing about that song is we had just done our live album um called On Your Feet or On Your Knees. It was a really nice live album. It went gold. Um, but the nice thing about that, it gave us a little extra time to write songs. Instead of having to write songs in like 3 months, we had, you know, almost a whole year to write songs for the album that became Agents of Fortune, which has the song Don't Fear the Reaper on it. So our guitar player, Don, he was having some uh, medical issues, and nothing really tragic, but he was concerned about his longevity, his his mortality. He was concerned about his mortality, so he was home for a couple of weeks, and he just started writing, and he came up with this brilliant guitar riff, and he played it over the phone for my brother. Here, listen to my new song. He's playing it on the phone, and he says, "Oh, that sounds pretty good. Why don't you work on it some more?" You know. So
Mm.
a couple of weeks later, maybe a month, he brings it into rehearsal, and we were shocked. I was shocked. You know, there's varying opinions about their first reaction, but my first reaction to the song was, "This is it. We need a hit." We put out 4 albums, and we didn't really have that song, that Smoke on the Water, that was going to
Mm.
take it over the top. And not that we didn't even start out to be a commercial band. We didn't want to be a commercial band. We didn't want to follow the normal trends at the time. So we liked being a little bit odd, a little weird, a little weird. We're a little weird. I mean, I grew up in a pretty normal household, but I can't speak for the rest of the guys. The rest of the guys, no, we were all pretty, but we wanted to make our impression on the world, and
Mm.
luckily Reaper came along. It was 1976. I think we recorded it in 75, and it came out early in 76. Um, I'm sitting in the studio, and producer says, "Albert, go out there and play the cowbell." And he played the cowbell. It's a true story. It wasn't done all together like in the comedy. The comedy, for comedy's sake, they did it all together. No, it was an
Mm.
overdub at the end.
Mm.
Uh, and then I came back a couple weeks later to the studio, and they had finished the mix. And I'm listening to the mix. I'm going, my jaw dropped. Like, ah, you know, and I knew it was good, but when the engineer mixed it, and we got to listen to it on the big speakers in the studio, it was. I said, "This is it." I called up our accountant. I said, um, Bruce, if we've ever got a hit, this is it. So let's do whatever we can with this song. It was gonna be a hit. And so they didn't put it out right away. The record label, it wasn't the first. I don't know what they did. They put it out in like April. It didn't come out until October, which is a good time because it's Halloween.
Mm.
It's Halloween. Yeah.
So that,
And you know, and it was kind of like the radio stations did their own edit of the song because they wanted to play it. And this is back with almost before FM was that big. It was AM radio. I don't you don't remember AM radio. You're too young. Well,
yeah.
AM radio, I remember. No, but the
So
radio stations did want the song. They wanted it, and that told the company, yeah, let's put this out. And then all of a sudden, it came out. It was on all the radio stations, and the shows that we would play that might be half full, or you know, and it was all guys. As soon as that song came out, the place filled up with girls and guys and sold out the rooms. And we started seeing night after night, full house, sold out, you know, on and on. It's like, wow. Yeah, the power of a hit record, you know, doesn't come along every day, but it came along once. And, you know, Godzilla and Burn a few others that do very well. Um, Even Last Days of May, and well, I don't know, a few others. And then we get picked to be in a lot of movies. We're in, last time I checked, 75 different movies, TV shows, video games. Over 75 different places that song is playing. You know, it's playing all over the world all the time.
But it's amazing, and it must feel so great to know that you basically, made that. That is your product, and the whole world has basically taken it and been like, we love it.
I do not believe it, but it's true. It is true, and grateful.
So another fan question: what is meant by "he won't be her pigeon" in "Sinful Love"?
Sinful Love. Well, the lyrics were written by a good friend of ours, Helen Wheels, also known as Helen Robbins, but she professional name was Helen Wheels. So she wrote those lyrics, and it was really sort of a put down because she always wanted to be friends with Patti Smith, and Patti would never acknowledge Helen. And I think Helen's very musical, but with her lyrics, I've written several Helen songs, and I still do. I just did on my last album. It was an old one. She passed away a few years ago, but I always loved working with Helen's lyrics because they sound very musical in my ear. So that's what it is. I don't want to be your pigeon. I don't want to be put down like a pigeon. Daredevil, she-devil, princess devil, evil. I love you like sin, but I ain't going to be your pigeon. So Helen said, no, I'm not going to bow down. You should acknowledge me as a contemporary, but she never did. Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know. I've never. I should ask. Next time I see Patti, I will ask her what she really thought about Helen. But that's a long time dispute.
That was a question.
That's how you get a good song, though, too. When there's strong emotions involved. That's where the strong, good songs will come from.
That was a question by Sean Stradom. So coming back to your latest stuff, how did you approach songwriting from a creative perspective in your solo stuff compared to when you were with Blue Öyster Cult?
Yeah, that's a good question. Remember, I was saying how Ian Hunter gave me songwriting lessons. And one of the things he said to me, and this is kind of obvious, if you really want to write good songs, you got to put in the time. I think when I was with Blue Oyster Cult, my job was really to play the bass, and be a good showman on stage, look good on stage, and support, the virtuoso in the band, which is Buck Dharma. I was to give him a platform that was going to elevate him as a player. I feel that was my job, but also is to keep the whole thing together. So Ian told me, if you want to write good songs, you got to put in the time. You can't, sometimes they come easy, they come fast, but a lot of the times they don't. So you have to work at it, So that's what I'm doing now. I think almost all of the songs I wrote with Blue Oyster Cult, Screams, Hot Rails to Hell. I really was, seven Screaming Dizbusters. A few other songs that we co-wrote together. They were done pretty fast, pretty haphazardly. And nowadays, I like to think and come up with stuff. And if something is a little weak, I have to change it. Where back then, if it was a little weak, I let it go. And the fans accepted that sort of haphazard way of songwriting. So I'm doing a lot more thinking about what I want to write about. I've been writing about how lucky I was to have this long career and the excitement of that. But now I'm looking at more historical things that have happened to me. I just went to Los Angeles and played a show, a benefit show, and so I came up with a song about Sunset Boulevard, and that's a the sort of Hollywood thing came up. It hit me because I actually went and did this benefit, and then a few others about odd things that have turned my head. People in my family. I write songs about people in my family and their quirky things about them. So I hope that somebody's gonna like it. Yeah. And I was talking to a famous songwriter. I won't mention his name, and he's 5 years younger than I am, and I connected with him through a friend, and I said, "Hey, let's write some songs together. Come on, let's. Yeah, I want to write some new songs, and you have a gift, for writing songs." And he said to me, "I'm just retired. I don't have any ideas. I've used up all my ideas. There's nothing new to write about." And I'm thinking, this is getting me mad. I'm saying, wait a minute, I got lots to write about. So it's kind of like, depending on your enthusiasm, how how things are going to come out. You got to be excited about it. And so this year, I just started recording with my band, and this is new because I record now with the whole band in the studio, just like the old days. We went to a real studio, fantastic drum sounds. The whole band's excited. We're all playing together, and it's really, when my next record comes out, you're gonna be impressed, I think, because the records I did 7 solo albums, but they're more like I play around with the little things, and then I bring the drummer in to replace my program drums, and it works really good. But and I like producing myself too. I like being the producer, having to make all the choices, and not have to compromise with my bandmates. So I make all the choices, and I think this next record's going to be great. I mean, this will be my 8th solo album.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for coming on the air with me.
It's been a
Um,
pleasure.
yeah, until next
Pleasure.
time.